Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have a guest from Ohio who I find very interesting and had a wonderful conversation with. Now he wants to share his encounter with us. Before we get into today's upload, though, a couple links. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch to help this channel to continue to grow and go. All of those links are in the description below. I also have a second channel for creepypasta, fan fiction, and scary voice acting. Stories that really don't fit on this channel. Now, if that's anything that you're into, follow that link and give those stories a listen. You may just like what you hear. Now, I've taken enough of your time. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? Alright guys, tonight I have a guest with us. He has been with the channel for over a year. He reached out to me over a year ago, and he lives in Ohio, and we've been emailing each other for about a week now, trying to get a time together, and finally we were able to. His name is Preston. Preston, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Jeff. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming on, and like I said, the floor is yours, my friend, so share away.
Well, first, I'd like to say thank you for reaching out to me. For anybody, who has had encounters, and then they, reach out to YouTubers, not that, you guys are the end all be all, but it means a lot. It really does when you guys reach back to us, because we can share information. If nothing else, sometimes it's just about venting. But I've only got 45 minutes, so I'm going to speed up talking a little bit faster than I normally do, because I've got a lot I want to get out. Let me just start by saying my name is Preston. I'm born and raised in Ohio. I live in Columbus, Ohio. I was born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. And that's actually where this whole thing started with me. I went to Ohio State, so I lived in Columbus for a number of years. So I moved back to Cincinnati, and well, let me explain Cincinnati for those who don't know about Cincinnati, give you a picture of it. Cincinnati is a very beautiful city. It's a major population center, but yet and still it's cut straight out of the wilderness. Like once you leave the main roads of almost any street in Cincinnati, it's nice tree-lined streets, wooded areas, some heavily wooded. Okay, so that's where I grew up. So I moved back to Cincinnati in 1997, back to my old neighborhood. And one thing I noticed right off is that we have a very large deer population in my area, which we never had before. So now around the year 2000, I got custody of my son. So I'm always a teacher. So I was explaining to my son, the reason we're seeing so much deer now in the neighborhood is because construction or whatnot, we've infringed on their habitat. And that's what I went by for some years. But I thought about it, and like we discussed earlier, once we leave anywhere damn near the United States, once you leave the major population centers, it's basically wilderness areas, deserts, plains, areas, mountains, whatever. So I thought about it. I'm like, deer would just move deeper out into the woods. So I started thinking well, might it be that they're more scared of something in the wilderness than they are in the city, so they rather be around us. So that went my quest. It's just brainstorming. It's thinking okay, what's forcing deer into the city? So I guess around 2010 or so, I stumbled on Dogman. So, listening to him, like, okay, Dogman. So I've always been open-minded because of things I've seen. So I kind of got familiar with the Dogman phenomenon, and, I kind of just laid it down a little bit. Then I guess all around 2015 or so or whatever, I think it could have been later than that, but I heard the Siege of Rocket Ranch, and that kind of really got me back into the phenomenon. But like with most people with Bigfoot, I assumed that dogmen were a down south phenomenon because, most people assume that Bigfoot are a Pacific Northwest phenomenon. So then I started hearing more experiences. I started hearing about the LBL. I'm like, okay, well that's closer. That's a lot closer. So I was listening to a program and I heard an interview with Jody Cook, North American Dogman Project. So I'm listening to it, and in talking, he mentioned that he was from Cincinnati. So I'm like, okay, that's where I'm from. So I reached out to him, and we struck up conversation. And he tells me, Ohio is infested with dogmen. And suddenly he gave me an answer I've been looking for 10 years. Now, this is where a lot of stuff is going to start coming together real fast, Jeff. Like we discussed earlier, a lot of people have seen dogmen or seen cryptids, and you don't really realize it because you don't know what you saw until somebody will bring up something and it was something will just click. So where my mom lives at in Cincinnati, she lives kind of back in a nice little side street, very heavily wooded. So I would notice, I would go over her house, pick up my son would spend the night over her house. And I would go over there, and I would pick him up in the morning. So I get out of my car, and I would walk to her building, and I would just smell the overwhelming smell of wet dog. And I never really thought anything about it. Just, okay, I smell wet dog. And it wasn't until I'm playing things back in my head that something just clicked, like, I shouldn't just smell wet dog in the air. Like dogs don't produce that much of a smell when they're wet. But yet and still, I would notice the smell of wet dog. And then I started replaying other things like, there was a time I came down there to visit my mom. So I got there on a Friday, and I'm looking out her window, and there's like a little small pasture in the back of her yard. So I see a mother goose and 3 chicks. I don't know what you call baby geese, but these 3 chicks. And then down from them, I saw there was a deer grazing with 3 younger deer. So 2 days later, I seen, this is a story in itself. I saw that mother goose leading the 2 baby deer. Her chicks were gone and the mother deer was gone. So that just let me know, like, okay, there's most likely a dog man in that area. Okay, now let me fast forward and get to the meat of the story. I started working a job in 2017. I drove a fuel tanker. So in my training, I started my training in Dayton, Ohio. So, this is a subject that you don't really just bring up with the average person. Like, hey, you want to talk about dogmen? Have you heard about dogmen or Sasquatch? So, that's something I just normally keep to myself. But like I said, I had been having conversations with Jody Cook, so I was familiar with the Germantown area. So knowing that part of my training that I would have to make deliveries to the same park, the Metro Park, where there had been sightings of dogmen. So the guy who was my trainer, he could see I was kind of nervous, so I finally just came out with it, and I told him. So as it turns out, he'd never heard about dogmen or anything, but he was interested in cryptids. So we're talking, and he was very interested on the subject, so I just told him everything I knew. And one of the things that I mentioned is how misidentification, because people think they're seeing something, and I see something else. So one of the things that people see, or they confuse them, is like with big cats. So when I said that, he immediately related a story that another one of the drivers in Dayton told him about 2 or 3 months before I started working. He was driving in the middle of the night on a road called Shady Hollow Lane or Shady Hollow Road, like near Germantown. And he said that he described it as a black cat that was bigger than a Great Dane, bounded across the road faster than anything he'd ever seen. So when I had a chance to question the guy, it turns out that he really wasn't sure if it was a black cat or not. It just moved like a cat, but it was just so big it just appears a black blur. So let me fast forward now about 2 weeks from that. Now I'm in training here in Columbus, where my route is going to actually be. So we go to this time. It's in an area about a half hour south of Columbus. I'll name the city, but I won't be exact with the exact location. But it's an area called Circleville, Ohio. So I have to I have to stop at this place twice a week. So this is my first time ever going there, and it's a large stone quarry. So they have a big dredge pond and everything in there. So we go there for the first time in the middle of the night. So this is after a week of me telling this guy talking about Dogman and stuff, right? So we get to this place. It's in the middle of the night. And by the way, Jeff, after this, I'm going to send you pictures. So you will have a visual reference of everything that I'm telling you.
Okay.
So we pull up to this stop. It's in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the night. So we back up our fuel truck to the side. He's on the driver's side. So it's at night, so we both have headlamps. And so as I'm walking to the back of the truck to meet him, so we can turn the pumps on, start and pump the fuel, I can already see like underneath the truck. So as I'm walking to the back of the truck, I already see it. I see a footprint. So I'm like, okay, I know I'm not seeing what I'm seeing. So when I get around to the back of the truck, like me and my trainer, we're facing each other. So I say to him, I'm like, what's that? He's like, what's what? And I point down my hand like, what's that? And it was like the footprint was in between the two of us. And the first thing he did, because, this is he's a, country guy, lives out in the country. So, hunting, fishing and stuff. So the very first thing he did, because the print was facing his direction, the very first thing he did was like turn around to look for more prints. So he didn't see any. So he starts walking behind me and he spots another track that was probably spaced about a good 6-7 feet. And then he saw another one about 6-7 feet. So we saw about 4 prints before we equally got kind of shook. So we just filled the tanks. We really didn't say too much else. And then we left. So we were kind of quiet because we were heading back to Columbus. And, I remember his exact words to me was, okay, you have to come here twice a week. Make sure that as soon as you get to work, you go to the refinery, you load your fuel, and you make this the first stop. He's like, do not come here at night. If it's too late, don't come. Now, this is the guy who is training me. And this is money. This isn't just some, I'm delivering fuel. Like this particular stop, they got at least 1,000 gallons per stop. So this wasn't this wasn't a game. This was money. So I took that in mind. So knowing now, like, okay, there's a Dogman there's a Dogman here, because I actually took a picture of the footprint with one of my gloves sitting next to it, and I'll send you that picture. But so this happened in the first week of February of 2018. So now I'm cut loose. I'm running my route. I'm secure, so I'm doing my job now. Now, what I didn't mention is I have a friend from Cincinnati who had 3 separate encounters of her own, which is probably another show in itself. But anyway, so, this is one of the few people who could relate with what I was talking about. So I made sure whether it was her or my son or somebody else, whenever I made that stop, I made sure that I was on the phone with somebody, because I was nervous. So this is February. Let's fast forward March. By the first week of April, I'm I'm there making a stop, and I never really felt at ease there. You know, the stereotypical. I felt like I was being watched. Yes, I felt like I was being watched every time I was there. So my normal routine. I'm on the phone and with my friend, and so I get done pumping my fuel, get my hoses all reeled up, and everything squared away. So I'm sitting in the cab of my truck, and I'm looking, and I just happen to glance over at my little handheld computer to get my next stop lined up, and something just catches my eye just because I happen to be looking over to the right. Now, the pictures will explain what I'm about to break down. This place had, I call it a building, but basically it was more, if you can picture, basically what it was a shelter that they had to keep material dry, like, I don't know if it was like stone or some type of asphalt or whatever. But basically what this building was, the side walls were basically three shipping containers high. And then the back wall were two long-way shipping containers. So I guess the dimensions would be like 55 by 110 or something like that, with a roof sitting on top. So with three sides with the open side, right? So you can picture. So I'm sitting in my truck, and I happen to glance through a couple of like little silos or whatever. I could see through these things. I could see the roof of this building. And what caught my eye, well, let me back up for a second. A couple weeks ago, I was listening to your channel, and someone brought up an encounter, and they brought up something about crows, or something to look out for is when crows fly away. Okay?
Yeah.
As I remember now, as my encounter, when I first got to the stop and I was backing up into the place where I was going to, pump my fuel, right where the Dogman was, there's trees behind there. And I saw these crows, something spooked these crows, and they flew away. Didn't think anything about it. So fast forward now, I look on the roof, and the only reason that it got my attention is because it was jet black. And once again, I hate to sound cliche, but when you hear people say that these things are blacker than black, it was blacker than black, and it just stood out to me. So I'm on the phone with my friend. I was just about to say, I was telling her, I'm like, I made it. I'm about to get out of here. So I glanced over, and I remember I said to her, I'm like, oh, that's just great. And she's like, what's wrong? I'm like, not only do I have to worry about Dogman, but right now I'm looking at the biggest bird I've ever seen in my life sitting on a roof. And Jeff, it's amazing how the mind works. When you see something you've never seen before, your mind tries to associate with something that you know. Now, I'm actively looking for Dogman. Every week I'm there.
Right.
But because it was in a spot that I didn't expect it to be, my mind just, I'm looking right at it, and I'm thinking it's a bird. I didn't have my glasses on, for one thing. That also is another part of it. So she started laughing. I'm like, no, I'm serious. I'm like, I'm looking at a bird that's bigger than me. Like, it's sitting on the roof, and this bird is larger than me, because the way it was standing on a roof, it was standing like giving me its profile. So it was like looking thin, and I'm just like cracking jokes, but I'm like, okay, you don't believe me. I'm like, let me let you go. I'm like, I'm about to take a picture, because I'm like, I don't believe this, but on top of everything else, I got giant birds out here. So I get off the phone, and I didn't have my glasses on. So when a lot of times if you take a picture with the phone, you're kind of looking at whatever you're taking a picture of and the phone at the same time. So you're not really looking at either one. You're kind of focusing like in between.
Yep.
So I'm looking kind of like in my phone with one eye and at this thing in the other. So, and this took me about a month to figure out what I'm about to tell you, like what happened. So I snapped a picture, and this thing like moved. It ducked, like ducked his head, and like kind of it came back up, and I was like, what the? So I snapped another picture. It did it again. Okay, so this, and it kind of like ducked because it was a pitched roof, so it kind of like ducked on the backside of the roof. So when it came up this time, it didn't show me his profile. It was like a full frontal view. So I'm like, what the? Even, with my glasses on, I can see like this thing was different. So I slide my glasses on, and it was initially standing there, like I said, looking right at me. And I would say it was about 100 yards. It was probably about 100 yards away. And it initially was just, I could see probably from waist up. And it was no confusing what I was looking at. Like it was it had the body of the and I hate to sound cliche-ish, but when people describing these things, they're get like this, when people say picture the werewolf from Underworld, like the jacked one. That's what this thing torso looked like. But the only difference in this one was it literally had the head of a wolf, not like a human looking wolf, a huge wolf head. So I had my glasses on, and it immediately kind of it put its arms on the roof. And now, okay, let me try to picture where I was. After I put my glasses on, and I'm making sure when I'm looking at, I gripped the steering wheel and I pulled myself up into the dash area. So I pulled myself up and to the right. So I'm looking up and to the right. And this thing was sitting on the roof, almost in the same posture as I was, but it was looking like its body was looking down and to the right. And, one thing I would like to say I hear a lot of encounters, and I hear a lot of people that have had very bad encounters, up close and personal. And, I feel terrible for those people because my encounter was 100 yards away, and it freaked me out, but at never at any point that I feel threatened. I didn't get a threatening vibe. If anything, when me and this thing were looking at each other, it's like we were thinking the same. It's like I was thinking oh, I can't believe what I'm looking at, and it was almost like I can't believe dude can see me. I mean, literally, it was looking it confused can he see me? That's the vibe that I got from it. But it, I never saw any teeth or anything like that. I mean, and I said I saw it. For the time I put my glasses on, that lasted because I wasn't. It didn't take me long to for it to register. Okay, that's a Dogman. From the time I put my glasses on to the time I hit my air brakes and pulled off, it was no more than 6 or 7 seconds. But the entire encounter probably lasted a little over a minute. So, I'm thankful really that I only, out of my minute of seeing it, I only knew what it was for 5 seconds because, and that alone, traumatized me, Jeff, for real. So my heart goes out to those people who have had, up close, extended encounters with these things because it's I know what I've gone through. I know what I still go through. And my heart just goes out to anyone who who's had to go through this. I mean, it really does. So that pretty much is it in terms of my encounter. Now, the bad thing about this is that, like I said, this is job related. So after seeing this thing, it was my job. So it wasn't like a one-time thing. I had to go there twice a week. And I think that was the traumatizing part of it for me, knowing that, like, there was no guesswork. There's any secondhand information. Is it anybody relating a story to me? This is something I've seen with my own eyes. You know what I mean? And I know it's there. And I know it's been there. I've seen a footprint once, and I've actually seen it twice. So I know it's there. But because of my job, I have to go there. I can't. Well, if it came down to it, I would have told my bosses, like, hey, there's werewolves down there. You can drop the fuel if you want to. I'm not going there. But that's what was so traumatic for me.
You had a sense of dread every week. Every week there was 2 days a week that you just you were like, shit, do I really have to go here every week, or every other day to drop off fuel?
And to tell you how serious it was, I went there on Tuesdays, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And if for any reason I got a late start in the day, because I worked like second shift anyway. So if there came a time where it was late in the day, they did not get any fuel that day. They would have to wait till Thursday. And like I said, like, this wasn't, they had 3 tanks. They had a 1,000-gallon tank and 2 500-gallon tanks. So top nose off, they usually get about 1,000, 1,200 gallons, every trip. And there was times I did not go. So this lets you know, like this was my career.
Right. How long did it take to top off? Like, how long were you there topping these off?
I would be there anywhere between a half hour and 45 minutes.
So for 45 minutes, dealing with 2 days a week, Monday you're dreading Tuesday, Wednesday you're dreading Thursday. On top of that, you're there for 30 to 45 minutes, probably looking over your shoulder every time, you hear a twig break going, is it coming back? That's...
and that's where, I and like most people, I did, and I have become, I guess, obsessed. But Jeff, you can't help it though, dude. I'm telling you, people aren't crazy. You know what I mean? And it's like, you have to know as much as you can, right? And the one thing that I took solace in is knowing that I saw it one time, but I know for a fact every time I was there, the thing was watching me. I just didn't know it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And the one thing that I've gathered from every encounter is that there is no, I got away from it, I outran it. No. If you get it, put it like this: if these were just bloodthirsty killers and just they killed everything they came across, there would be no such thing as Dogman encounters. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there would be nobody to tell the tale. So that's the one thing that I guess kept me, sane, but barely. It's one thing not to know, but it's one thing to know. So when I hear about people who, it's on their family property, and but they still have to do it. You still have to live. And if your family farm, that's your money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So life can't stop. So I can relate with these people who, you got 2 choices. Like my choice, I either had to go there or quit. With theirs, they either, hey, do your daily chores or you sell the farm.
Yep.
And people, look, and one thing that I want people to understand, I can't speak for anyone else, right? But you can I mean, I'm not hard to find. It's not too many questions. If you do enough homework, you can find out who I am. But I can't vouch for anybody else. But one thing you can guarantee, that every word that you hear coming out of my lips is not only 100% accurate, but it's no exaggeration. If I tell you this is what happened, this is what happened. If I tell you I said something, this is what I said. If I tell you this is what I saw, this is what I saw. Like Jeff, I've been trying to get in touch with you for over a year. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I gained nothing but possible ridicule.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing to gain by sharing. You just want to get it out. You know? What do you have to gain? You're not getting $1 million for telling your story, so why make up a story? I agree with you completely.
You know, and if anything, I just want to. It's like a database. The more information you have to add to a database, the more accurate the database is. And I'm just adding. You know, I would just like to add to the database. That's all. You know. Let me see. You know, there's a couple of follow-ups to this. My next door neighbor at the time, right after this happened, you know, I knew he liked to go fishing. So I told him, I'm like, look, you know, whenever you're out in the woods, man, just be aware of your surroundings. Always be aware of your surroundings. I was like, you know, if you hear the woods go quiet or silent, just be extra vigilant and just always watch your six. So he was like, man, you sound like my grandma. So he would always like, man, like from time to time he would like, man, why did you tell me that? And I just wouldn't say anything. So, you know, we were drinking one day, we're talking, and he goes, he's like, man, he's like, when you told me to watch myself in the woods like that, he's like, man, I keep saying, like, man, you sound like my grandma. He's like, we used to go, when I was a kid, we'd go spend summers with my grandma, and that's what she used to always say, like, we couldn't even go outside at night. I mean, so I broke down, I'm like, okay, this is cool. You know, so I told the whole story, showed the pictures and everything to do. So, he was like, man, where was this at? So I told him Circleville, Ohio. Like his eyes just got as big as saucers. He's like, dude, that's where my grandma's like from. Like that's where I used to go spend the summers, like in Circleville. Like that's what I'm talking about. Well, you serious? He was like, we wasn't allowed to go out. Like we couldn't go outside at night. He was like, you know, he was like, and I was that one to ask questions. So, you know, he's like, when I was a little kid, I asked my grandma, like, Grandma, why can't we go outside at night? And she said to him, because the Dogman will get you. So he's looking at me like, he's like, they're real? He's like, I thought she was just, you know, bullshitting us, you know, because we was little kids. I'm like, well, apparently not. You know, and which leads to another subject, man, folklore. Like, you know, like your grandparents, like, there's a reason why they tell you, like, why in the country nobody ever goes out after dark. You know what I'm saying? There's a reason why. They don't tell city folk that. But this thing really isn't. The further you get away from the cities, I'm starting to realize, too, the less this is really like a big secret. Like, they may not call them Dogmen, but they have different names for them. But, you know, I'm starting to see that, you know, country folk, this is, like I said, it's just one more thing that they deal with.
Yeah. Yep. There's the guy that I speak to on a regular basis. He lives down in Virginia, and he's about my age, 43. He talks to some old timers, you know, in their 70s, and he said, you know, he had brought it up to him at one point, and it's something that, you know, the old timers talk about, you know, secretly amongst each other, but it's not, it's not brand new to these guys, and this is like deep Virginia, Woods, Virginia, and it's not a new subject to them. But folklore is, it's based on fact, it's just like Native American lore, there's always some sort of fact to the fiction. And I really like the phrase you used. It's a database, because that's exactly what it is. It's just like it's a verbal file cabinet of encounters and information.
And it's I don't and that's one thing which, like I said, I've always been open minded because of things that I've seen. But I may look at the comments. A person may, oh man, you full of whatever, or they see the pictures I send you and like, oh man, that's this and that. The thing about it is I'm not here to convince anybody. I don't have to. I'm here to relate my experiences that I've heard. Now, a person can believe those or they don't. And honestly, if I can digress for a minute, the whole, I'm 52 years old and I'm getting caught up with the whole computer. Well, not computer, but YouTube and social media and all this. And the concept of trolls, I just don't understand. Like, like with my background in broadcasting, there's a philosophy of, there's no such thing as bad publicity, but I can't understand how a person will sit for an hour, okay, listen to an hour's worth of encounters just to shoot it down. Like, do you have anything better to do with your life? I mean, seriously. The concept of trolls, I'm still trying to. I laugh at them. Actually, I think it's very funny, but it just I don't understand the concept of trolls. Like, trolls are like, I really think that's what they do. They just sit and they troll all day. They'll troll you. They'll troll him. That's what they do. Like, and I don't. That concept to me is just, I don't get it. But with this, I don't have to. I'm gaining nothing. Right. That's what I really want people to understand. The only thing that I'm gaining right now is a little weight off my chest, actually.
Right on. Yeah. And we've had our fair share of trolls on this channel. And they're not really bad anymore. For some reason, I kind of ignored them. It seemed like when I was talking about them is when they came. And, we've got a good, well, you've been here for a while. So, the comment section, there's a lot of great people. And, there's one out of whatever, how many, comment. So out of 400 comments, you might have 3 that are trolls. And instead of trolling, they probably should just like get a friend, maybe clean their mom's basement of the cobwebs. I'd be sick of sitting in my mom's basement on my laptop and just want to clean the basement a little bit. But, who cares? And I agree with you.
Hey, Jeff, I don't mean to interrupt you. I don't know how much time I got, but I can't believe I forgot this because, this is the point I've been wanting to get across for about a year if I ever got a chance to talk to the public, okay? I hear a lot of encounters, and I hear about people talking about, they were cutting these things down and do-do-do. Look, let me tell you something, okay? To describe my encounter, okay? I saw this thing by accident. Where it was perched on top of a little roof, right? And the only way I could describe its vantage point is that if I was a sniper and I wanted to shoot me sitting in my truck without being seen, that would be the perfect, like, that would have been the perfect sniper nest to take. If I was a target, it was the perfect strategic vantage point to take me out.
Yeah.
Which shows like above average human intelligence. Like, this showed like, it wasn't a accident where this thing was. It was in a perfect location for it to see me and me not to see it. And I think that's why it was kind of surprised and was really wondering if I actually saw it, because it kind of overplayed his hand, because had it been about a month later, I probably wouldn't have seen it, because the foliage on the trees hadn't grown in yet. So it didn't have like a true background like it would normally have, because these things could literally just be standing right at the edge of a tree line, and you wouldn't see it, because you would think it was a shadow. That's how skillful they are, in terms of camouflage. But a wild animal cannot process things like that. Like I said, this thing it would take a military mind to position itself where it was positioned.
Right.
And like I said, I saw it purely by accident. So when I hear these stories, about people, now it's one thing if you're out hunting and you come across one, or you're protecting your property, but, for these guys that, like, I got a bear at 50 cal, I'm going to go out and take one down. Okay, good luck with that. Good luck with that. Right? Good luck with that.
Absolutely. They're an apex predator, They are an apex predator with above natural intelligence. I mean, they're designed for the hunt, whether it be for food or fun. Their skill is they're ambush, they're ambush predators. They've got tactical skill. It's insane how skillful they are.
And that's the one thing that I guess gives me goosebumps even when I think of it, just the word that you use. The tactical advantage that this thing put itself in, like I said, if it was a sniper, he could have put one through my right temple. I mean, that's what, he was like at my 2 o'clock position, elevated at about, it was the perfect perch.
Yep.
The perfect, if you were, that's where you would set up tactically. That's where you would do it.
Yeah.
So, when people think these are just, like dumb big dogs, okay, you can think that if you want to. You know what I mean? And those are the people that we probably don't hear their account.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because don't get me wrong, like, I'm not, just because I was fortunate, I think part of it has to do with, with me as a person, not to be corny, but, I don't have any hate in my heart. And, even as I've never gone out in the woods with hate in my heart. I don't walk around with hate in my heart. And you got to think about it. Like, if your family dog doesn't like negative energy, like, how they always tell you, like, if your dog don't like somebody when they come to the house, watch that MFer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, watch out for that person. Yeah, because they can sense.
It's the same thing. Like, if I have to believe that. Like, if you're going out in the wilderness with a certain vibe, if you're a certain type of person, that energy isn't conducive with nature, and if nothing else, you're going to draw negative attention.
Right on, right. I agree with you. We're coming up on time right now. I did want to ask you a question when we were talking. We're at about a minute and a half. you had mentioned that you had a couple of other encounters.
Oh, yeah.
Share. How would you like to come on again and for a part 2 to share the encounters that your friend had? Is that anything that you're interested in?
I would love to, because look, just to give you a little tease. My friends' encounters make mine look like nothing. All
right. Well, we literally have about 30 seconds. Maybe today's Tuesday. How about we'll shoot for Wednesday or Thursday, maybe tomorrow or Thursday, if you're available.
That's fine. That's great.
That sounds great. All right. Is there anything that you'd like to say to everybody before we end the call?
I'd just like to thank you again, Jeff, and just tell everybody, just be safe, be aware of your surroundings always. Wherever you are, just be aware of your surroundings. Whether you live in the city or the country, it doesn't matter.
All right. Thank you for coming on again. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, Jeff. Have a good one.
Wow. What a great guest. I really enjoyed having Preston on. Like we said, he is going to share an encounter that his friend she had in Ohio as well. I'm looking forward to hearing those. I did something a little different today. Normally, I hear the person's encounter prior to having them on. Today, I didn't. And I really enjoyed today's upload because I got to hear the encounter just like you guys did. It was fresh, and I really liked that. I hope you guys did as well. I look forward to tomorrow and whatever encounters I have coming for you guys. Anyway, I really want to thank everybody for all of the support that has been coming towards the channel. We are growing rapidly, and it is truly amazing. And I feel really blessed, and I'm glad that I started this channel because I have met some wonderful people that I would never have met if I didn't. And thanks, guys. I really mean it. Thank you so much. With that, I'm going to bid you guys farewell until tomorrow. Have a great night, guys.